So, good morning, everyone. Welcome to the Summer School 2021, organized by IIPT Mumbai Sub-Regional Council. It is we are dedicating this to Professor D.P. Khandelwal birth centenary activity. I call upon our President, Dr. Atul Modi, to start the inauguration session.
Welcome to all the participants, our guest, Professor Lele and Professor Vijay Singh, President of Central IIPT. Uh, it's our pleasure to have uh, organized this program for students. Mumbai IIPT always conducts a summer program for undergraduate physics students. Most of the time we do try to inculcate problem solving skills in students. This time we decided to go ahead with computational physics, and it's a subject which is very close to my heart and Professor Mahesh Shetty's heart. I feel that along with experimental physics, computational physics has become a very big subject today, and lot of research work which happens uses techniques of computational physics. So those students who want to build their career in physics and want to go into research, they will be definitely be tremendously benefited by having this exposure of learning some programming techniques for solving physics problems. At the same time, those students who would like to go to industry for a job, IT and software industry offers a very good opportunity. I'm sure this exposure and capability which students will develop out of their own interest will also make them fit to be absorbed in industry for a good job. Um, I must say this that at least there's one area of computational physics which is doing some computational work with Microsoft Excel. I myself was introduced to this power of Excel by Professor Mahesh Shetty, and I was that time very much impressed. And so I always feel that this is an area which is so simple and yet very powerful. In fact, I have a member in my family who worked in one of the multinational finance institution, and I just casually asked him what software does he use for analyzing all these financial data, and he said Microsoft Excel. So that is the power. And since he held a very high position and he did a lot of work in financial data analysis where he used Excel, this exposure to Excel will be very useful to all the students. It is my sincere feeling that this should be accommodated in our BSc syllabus. Unfortunately, whatever programming has been included in plus plus, but it's not inclined or directed towards using those techniques in solving physics problem, which can be easily done right from the first year BSc itself. Then people would really appreciate and realize the power which physics gives to students. So I am hoping that this workshop will be tremendously useful to all the student participants, and the team, IPT team, Professor Mahesh Shetty and Professor A.M. Shankar have done a lot of work in organizing this, and I'm sure uh, they'll do wonderful job, even as teachers themselves who will be doing some teaching work in this workshop. And as I've already told you, myself was introduced to this technique by Professor Shetty. So my best wishes to all the participants that all of you take maximum benefit out of it with full involvement. I should say 24 by 7. I know it's too exaggerated 24 by 7. But yes, please do get involved and take maximum benefit out of it. At the end of 2 weeks, you should be good enough to be able to do frontline calculations with it. So with that, I request Professor Mahesh Shetty to go ahead with the next part of the.
Thank you, Dr. Atul Modi, for good beginning of and recognizing and encouraging people. Let me, as a secretary of Mumbai IIPT, let me put for some of the activities that we have been doing regularly. Mumbai IIPT, Mumbai is one of the sub-regional council under Maharashtra Regional Council of IIPT, which is Indian Association of Physics Teachers. Indian Association of Physics Teachers as has been working for improvement of physics teaching among students as well as teachers. So basically, teaching learning process, we all the time keep saying needs to be improved, and we take this opportunity where we want to bridge the gap between the syllabus and what is it needed for making it good physics. So Mumbai Sub-Regional Council has been conducting activities, uh, okay, to bridge this kind of a gap. Just last week, we had one workshop for plus two level physics teachers, which was for developing experiments from home. Okay, and again, a large number of this time because of pandemic, we had to go online. But online has one advantage that you don't get restricted to one small region. In fact, we could have people, 86 teachers, we could have large number of teachers, around 50 teachers coming from outside Mumbai region, all the way one participant from Jammu Kashmir, many participants from Tamil Nadu, Gujarat and Odisha, all areas we had covered, large number of people coming from Karnataka also. Same thing we are observing here in our summer school, that we are having large number of participants from various different places in India. We also have, though we wanted to have it mainly at undergraduate level, but we do have some participants coming from postgraduate level. Okay, so at Mumbai IIPT, whenever we conduct activities, as Dr. Modi mentioned, we have been focusing it on problem solving, and this time we decided we could, because it is going to be online, the computational physics probably could be the best way of doing it, because over a year, almost everyone has started using computers or at least computational power of mobile phones, okay, in a big way. So three different kind of activities we have been doing. One is this summer school, which is a flagship program for Mumbai IIPT, the teachers training programs, okay, and as well as we also conduct certain kind of seminars or lecture series for degree college teachers. During this pandemic, we had 15 lecture series, and many of those lectures are available on IIPT Mumbai YouTube channel. Okay, so you can also go to those, and you can see that even that workshop experiment from home has been uploaded on IIPT Mumbai YouTube channel, and we expect that if the recording of all these sessions happen nicely, we will be able to upload these sessions also after some processing on Mumbai IIPT YouTube channel. Around right now, Shekhar sir is not around, who is the coordinator. I am also helping him as coordinator. So let me take this opportunity to also talk on his behalf. What are we planning to have in this particular summer school? What is the idea behind this particular summer school? The idea here is most of our syllabus at undergraduate level at most of the places do not have computational physics in a good way. There can be hundreds of reasons. There can be large number of reasons, like when you want to introduce something like computational physics, probably you have to ensure the access of computers or computational devices to every student, and so many times it may not be possible for board of studies to enforce these kind of things. Of course, with large number of colleges becoming autonomous, many of the places are introducing this slowly. But when it comes to as a program, probably board of studies or universities have this difficulty of imposing this on everyone. But because almost everyone is having now the one computational device, mobile, at hand, okay, and certain things can surely be done on mobile, we decided that at least certain computational techniques, things can be discussed. But while deciding this particular program, we decided that it is best to first use it on laptop, and later, once you get used to, you may also parallelly use it on mobile. So the idea here is introduce you to the techniques of computational physics. We do not expect to start developing simulations directly. We said, well, Python is becoming the buzzword. Most of the people working in industry these days are looking for Python, and Excel is itself is a powerful tool, and everybody generally has access to that. Therefore, why not use both these tools? You may master one tool or the other tool. The whole idea is once you master the idea, once you master the algorithms, okay, and once you start thinking in that terms, change of language shouldn't be a problem. The senior people over here, like Professor Vijay Singh, Professor Lele, these people, I'm sure, must have worked in Fortran and those kind of programming languages, and things have changed now. Okay, but once your logic is good, once your understanding of algorithms is good, okay, changing from one language to another language doesn't become much of an issue. Okay, so keeping in mind that Excel or Python, these are the tools, and what we need to learn is we need to learn the algorithms to tackle the physics problems, because our aim is to do physics, but with a new kind of tools. This kind of session is arranged. There will be tutorial sessions where two of the young tutors are going to help, Jigar and Pratik Barve. So these two tutors are going to help you. In the very first week, they will also help you learn step by step how to access Python. Okay, what is expected from you is you will start picking up the algorithms quickly. The technique language part will naturally be good. Okay, your skills will be honed when you have more practice, and that's why we expect that everybody also does the assignments which are given to you. The assignments, almost everyone has been there on Google Classroom now, and the assignments have been will be posted in the Google Classroom. Some material we are already posted. Okay, so make use of that and do your homework properly so that you can make this learning experience the best. So thank you, and I now call upon President IIPT, Professor Vijay Singh.
Thank you, Mahesh. And am I clearly audible?
Yes, sir.
Thank you. Am I also visible?
Yes, sir.
Thank you. Okay. Let me begin by saying a very good morning to Mahesh Shetty, to Atul Modi, to Rekha Ghorpade, and of course to our chief guest, Professor Lele, and a very warm welcome to all the students who have assembled. Okay. I'm told that this is a very popular, this has been a very popular workshop, and I would like to give credit to the Sub-Regional Council of Mumbai, this Mumbai chapter SRC, and actually give them a lot of credit because year after year they have come through and they have held workshops and they have held seminars which have been very useful to students and which are very popular with the students in Mumbai. So first of all, kudos to the Mumbai SRC, which puts in a lot of effort. It's not easy, I recall, and I'm sure that it's very difficult to organize these things, but they have come through. As president of IIPT, let me tell you a few words about my organization. One is the IIPT is a very large body. It has about 10,000 members across India. It is basically a grassroots body. There are lots of them. A large number of us are not just college teachers, but also school teachers. Several have retired. So it is a genuine grassroots science organization. Number two, this body is entirely voluntary. Okay. So what you give, you do not take any honorarium for any work that you put in. Okay. And a very good example is what is happening right now. This is an entirely voluntary activity of the Mumbai SRC, and it is so heartening and nice of them to dedicate it to our first president, the late Professor Khandelwal. The third aspect about this body is that it's a democratic body. Okay. Decisions are made perhaps slowly, but it is made with a consensus and with a democratic spirit. Having said that, for students at least, I have to say a few words about this workshop. I personally have a very long-standing association with computational physics. When I started out in the early 70s, there were two branches of physics, theoretical and experimental. So there was a theoretical branch, there was the experimental branch. But as I progressed in my thesis work in the early 70s, and it was in the United States, a new branch started emerging, and that was computational physics. So computational physics stands independently and apart now from both these branches, theoretical and experimental. And if you are well grounded in computational work, your versatility as a physicist, either theorist or as experimentalist, is enhanced. Okay. So it is to your advantage to do computational physics. Picking up on a thread of what Professor Atul Modi said, I had a couple of friends who were working on computational physics even more intensely than I did. They were working on statistical mechanics, and after they graduated, they found jobs in the industry. In fact, they were very sought after. One of them got a job in the Wall Street, on Wall Street, in fact, and became a great programmer over there. Okay. So you have a lot of versatility. Okay, that is one. Having said this, there's about 5 minutes of indulgence. There's about 5 minutes I have to take from you about the nature of computational physics. Okay. One is that if you have a series of calculations to be done repeatedly, okay, the computer is a good candidate, and the computer is what you should go to. Okay, this is what happened starting the early 40s. Okay, when the computer was first used, it was not the first use though, but it was used in a very meaningful way in the making of the atomic bomb in the Manhattan Project. So the repeated part is what I have outlined right here. Okay, I will just get up and I will show you, and I'm not sure if this is visible. Supposing you want to calculate the value of pi. So there is a formula for pi, okay, which is 4 into 1 minus 1 by 3 plus 1 by 5 minus 1 by 7 plus so on and so forth. That is an infinite series. If I go up to 1 minus 1 by 3, I get 2 by 3, and I get a value of pi which is 2.67. Okay, not very accurate. I keep one more term, I get 3.47. I keep one more term, minus 1 by 7, and I get 2.9. So I slowly, and in this case rather slowly, converge to the value of pi by an infinite series. So if there are a large number of repeated calculations I have to do, I will use the computer. Okay, it's very efficient to use it, and you will do all of this up to 10,000 terms in about less than a second, of course. There is another way in which a computer can be used, and that is what I call simulation. Okay, I want to calculate the same value of pi. So here is a unit square. Okay, you can see 0, 1, 0, 1, 1, 0, 1. And I ask you to do one thing. I ask you to perhaps aim a dart at the center of this square, of this unit square, and I give you 10 darts. If you take 10 darts and you hit it, they will be scattered around this unit square. Okay, is this visible, Mahesh?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Visible.
Oh. So they will be scattered around here. Then I take a compass and I draw a unit circle. Okay. Now you can do all this on the computer also, by the way. Okay. And 8 of them are inside, 2 of them are outside. So 8 out of 10 are within that unit circle. So I take 0.8. Let me take a black one. I take 0.8 and multiply it by 4. I get 3.2, which is a very good approximation to pi given this random number generation algorithm, also called the Monte Carlo method. Okay, so this is called a simulation approach. This is called, how should I put it, a heuristic approach, a guesswork approach. So there are two approaches to calculating pi. One is by a certain deterministic algorithm, and the other is by what I would call a random guessing algorithm. I've sent to Mahesh Shetty a Fortran program for both, okay? And I would like to suggest and also an article on how to calculate it. But these are the two broad approaches, and I'm sure all of this will be covered for you. Both the heuristic approaches, perhaps maybe not as much, but at least the deterministic approaches to calculate the value of, say, how to integrate, how to differentiate, how to do matrix multiplication. All of these are important, and you should all pay close attention to it for two reasons. One is that it will make you very versatile, and the second, as Professor Atul Modi said, okay, as Atul Modi said, the second is that it is also very enjoyable. Once you get into it, it is intoxicating, so to say. Okay, so you might want to do this. For example, right now the cyclone is approaching. Monsoon prediction is very bad. How would you do it? People use partial differential equations of the Navier-Stokes equation, okay, and program it to try to get this. Okay. So whether it's climate change, climate prediction, weather prediction, the prediction of how bodies would interact with each other, how gravitational bodies would interact, for example, or how electrons would interact. All of this is based on computational physics. Okay. So having said that, there's one final remark about this algorithm I have to tell you. The very first algorithm that I've written down as an infinite series, that is actually an expansion for tan inverse of x when x is equal to 1. Now tan inverse of 1 is pi by 4. Okay. And this was known to be the Gregory-Newton formula. It's a calculus-based formula. And now there's a small twist to it that I want to add. This formula was actually first discovered by mathematicians in Kerala, at least around 1350 or 1400. And they also laid down the approach to calculus in terms of limits and everything else. So it's called the Tantra Sangra formula. And if you'd like to read more about it, there are books now available. My email is there, physics.sutra@gmail.com. Okay. So I thought I should tell you something interesting. There's this calculus-based formula first invented on the Nila River by Kerala mathematicians. Okay. With that, let me conclude. But there's one other. Well, let me conclude. There's a lot to say about computational physics, and I will probably be taking time which does not belong to me. Okay. Once again, I end by welcoming and thanking Professor Lele, the SRC, and congratulating the SRC for this wonderful workshop. Thank you. Okay, I'm done.
Thank you, sir. Now, just a minute. Okay. Before I call upon Professor Rekha Ghorpade, let me tell you about IIPT has been conducting 3 national competitions. The national competition in experimental physics, and the coordinator for that is Professor Rekha Ghorpade, who will now be introducing the coordinator for another competition, a national competition in computational physics, Professor P.D. Lele. Professor Rekha Ghorpade is also treasurer of Mumbai IIPT and a long-standing support for Mumbai IIPT. So I call upon Professor Rekha Ghorpade to introduce our today's chief guest.
Yeah, thank you, Mahesh. So very good morning to everyone. I address Dr. Vijay Singh, President IIPT, Dr. P.D. Lele, guest speaker for today's inaugural function, Dr. Atul Modi, President Mumbai SRC, Professor Mahesh Shetty, Secretary Mumbai SABRC, Dr. K.G. Bhole, senior colleagues, Dr. Shamala Bodhane, and others. I can also see some of my friends from IPT, Dr. Sharmistha, Mariama, Danny, etc., and dear participants. I am here to introduce you today's guest speaker, Dr. P.D. Lele, who is a very close friend of mine. Dr. P.D. Lele holds a PhD degree in physics, ionosphere study and radio propagation. He has a 33 years of experience in teaching electronics at UG and PG level. He retired in June 2019 as a professor in physics from Gujarat University, Ahmedabad. He received Best Teachers Award by Gujarat Science Academy and also won several prizes for innovative experiments at NCIEP, that is National Competition for Innovative Experiments in Physics, conducted by IIPT. He has won several prizes even at Gujarat Science Congress and many other places. Currently, he is a secretary of IIPT Gujarat Regional Council, and he is there as a secretary for last 2 terms consecutively, and also a EC member representing Gujarat RC at Central IIPT. As Mahesh sir has already mentioned, that he is a coordinator for NCICP, that is National Competition for Innovative Experiment in Computational Physics. I'm sure that he will be also mentioning and in detail in his talk about this NCICP for you, and this competition is organized by IIPT. He has designed several experiments for Science Express, that is Science City at Ahmedabad. He has produced educational programs at EMRC, Ahmedabad on number systems, digital electronics, and robots. He has proposed network of mobile science vans, and his significant work includes publication of award-winning work on Sanskrit and other Indian language. I think we have a right person to have an inaugural speech at our inaugural program. And with this, I welcome Dr. P.D. Lele to talk on applications requiring tools, areas in physics and applications requiring tools of computational physics. I once again welcome Dr. P.D. Lele and all other participants for this summer school, and may I invite Dr. Lele for his guest speech. Thank you, everyone.
At the outset, namaskar to all the IIPT organizers. They have done a wonderful job in these days of Corona, and in today's particular day of having the cyclone battering the coast, and with the network out at many places, including at my house. Today we are able to join this program just because of the technology, and it also includes computational physics and the communications that has made it possible. Am I audible to all of you?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Okay. So now I will start. First of all, I would like to give you some information about the computational physics experiments, the competition that we hold at IIT. I happen to be the coordinator for this for last few years, and therefore this competition is very relevant to the subject of this summer school. So I would like to also market this activity, and I would be happy to get more and more participants in this competition from now onwards. There should not be a dearth of participants, and the competition should be robust, and it should be very vibrant, and we expect to get good teachers, good students, and good physics, and a healthy competition of this nature. The IIPT has provided this kind of a platform for 3 different competitions. Another competition is coordinated by Ghorpade madam, and that competition is National Competition for Innovative Experiments in Physics, and the competition which I am conducting is National Competition in Computational Physics. Now, what is the difference between these two? The difference is hardly any. In physics, everything under the sun is there. So you could have any kinds of experiments, and they are welcome. They are to be demonstrated. But we have excluded the computational part from that competition. We have also excluded computers and their application from that competition. So what we felt at the IIPT that we will not be able to do experiments and competitions and quality experiments unless and until we use the computer. So today the computer has come in a big way, and you cannot think of any state-of-the-art experiments in physics today unless and until you use the computational physics. So this is the naked truth. And secondly, in physics, physics is something more than just mathematics. Mathematics is the language of physics. Mathematics is everything man-made or the brainchild of the human being. And but physics is something reality, something which you have to measure. So physics believes in physical properties, physical material, and therefore experiments in physics you have to perform. You have to study the behavior of the material, and for that you have to use different types of mathematics, different types of models, whatever you require to understand the phenomena. So let us say physics is a very big subset and mathematics is a smaller subset of it. You need mathematics plus something else in order to understand physics, or in order to understand the nature. And what is required? What is that something else that you require? That something else is the boundary condition. Under what circumstances, what kind of mathematics is to be used, which mathematical model will be useful for understanding a given phenomena or given observations, or if you have observations, how do you develop a theory of it, how do you analyze it. For all that thing, you require mathematics. So mathematics and physics go together, but physics is a much bigger subject. That is how I will put it. Now, in our competition, what we are expecting? The following kinds of experiments are included in this competition. Number one, computational mathematical modeling based on softwares. So you have different softwares, you can make your own software. So computational mathematical model is basically model. Then it may be virtual. There can be theoretical experiments, there can be virtual experiments. All these are also included in this competition. Then next, sensors, actuators interface with microprocessors and PCs. So sensors and actuators. What are sensors? Sensors which are used for measuring in physics, and they give you some output, and that output you utilize and interface it with processors or the electronics, and there you use all your computational algorithms, programming and what not. And what are actuators? At the output of the computational physics output, what you get is some signal, and that signal you feed for controlling the system. That signal you feed for making changes in your measurement system. That thing you use for controlling the manufacturing industry or whatever you like. So controlling signal is fed to actuators. Actuators are like motors, pumps and other such devices which change the system physically. So this kind of interfacing thing is required. Then Android based, Arduino based, PID, PIC based, all types of experiments and applications also we are including in this competition. Because we want to make this competition broad based. And without these kind of things, now you have a cell phone. And your cell phone has got also a number of facilities. With increasing number of sensors and increasing number of devices and also applications. And applications are nothing but, let us say, algorithms or programs inbuilt with with your mobile. So this mobile can also, your cell phone can also do wonderful work, and that was also incidentally told to us by our president. Vijay Singh. So these all things are included in the competition, because now where are we going to get the candidates for this competition? Ideally, they should be people from physics who know physics, or whose main profession is physics. That is, you students are our future participants in this competition. Then what else we want? But you see, today as the syllabus is there in different schools and colleges and the universities, our syllabus is very old compared to what is the state of the art outside. And that is the problem where we have a problem of employability. We have a problem that our student who passes out is not industry worthy. Industry cannot absorb him immediately without training. So that is the gap which we are trying to nurture through such workshops. And it is exactly to train new people, the participants, to become ready for the real life. So this kind of now where we can get such people, ideally you people, but then as of today, what has happened, for a few years throughout the country, from the engineering faculty, they had removed physics altogether. And therefore, these students did not study physics even at the say first year of engineering, 2 semesters. And that has done a lot of damage. So, we old people in physics, we don't know, let me be frank about it, we don't know what are the latest measuring instruments, what are the types of laboratories existing in engineering colleges, and then what is the best bet. Very recently, some 2-3 years back, they have reintroduced that physics back into the engineering first year course. With those two important first 2 semesters in engineering, it has done a lot of damage by removing physics from the engineering faculty. Now, since it has come back, it is a boon to us, and the people who are teaching there are lecturers, very fresh young people who have just passed out MSc or who have just got a doctorate degree in physics and have joined the engineering colleges. These are the people who are today in a position to work in the laboratories of engineering colleges, and the people in the industry also. People in the industry don't have time for this. So what happens? These engineering college laboratories, the people who are daily working there, they can also participate in this competition. Engineering students, we welcome them. We welcome PG, UG students from physics. We welcome all kinds of innovations in this competition. And with this, I think I am through about telling you about this competition. Now coming to today's my talk, I have been given a wonderful opportunity. Again, I thank the Bombay chapter of IIPT for this wonderful opportunity to me. And then, I am not a man of competition physics. Neither I am a man of mathematics. So, whatever I will be telling you are on the periphery. I will try to take you around a tour of what applications can be there for our computation physics people. So it will give you a very vast idea of where are the places where you can use these techniques of computation physics. So I would say physics is everywhere. In ionosphere we say physics is everything under the sun, above the sun, beyond the sun. So also I can say any application you take, anything worthwhile you take, it is requiring computation physics. Without that, we cannot think of anything. Because today, if your car or your vehicle is impounded, you feel that you are almost without the vehicle. Very hard to learn, but we have to learn. Similarly, today you cannot think of removing your mobile even for 1 hour in 24 hours. Except for sleeping, we always have that mobile with us. And whether good or bad, but it is the state of affairs. And what is this cell phone? Cell phone is again computational physics. Without computational physics, this kind of communication is impossible. Today's communication is impossible without computational physics. My statement is not exaggerated. And today we are able to connect to each other in spite of the network being down. Means we have got n number of other ways of communicating anyhow and somehow, and successfully manage this workshop, which is a all India workshop. People from various locations, from the remotest part to the big cities, are able to communicate with us through this satellite communication, through optical fiber communication, and through the ionospheric communication and whatnot. Essentially, without computational physics, this application is impossible. So, now let me talk to you about some applications which we are seeing day to day. The other day there was a news that a boy from Pune who is just 16 years old has made a photograph of the moon, and that photograph they have published everywhere. It contains 55,000 images, and what he has done image processing. He has cleaned those images by using different softwares. Even he has used Adobe Photoshop and many other things. And finally, a 186 GB size of memory he has used and produced one photograph by stitching together those 55,000 images. It involves image dissection, it involves image processing, it involves many other softwares also which he has used, and he has published that kind of photograph. It is a work in astronomy. Now this application, a boy of 16 years is able to do this with his telescope in his own house. This requires, again, computational physics for making this kind of application successful. As it comes to astrophysics, let me tell you, the Hubble telescope, which is revolving around the Earth in the satellite, such kind of telescopes are made possible today because the atmosphere is not there in this space. So all the contamination and all the pollution is gone, and you can see n number of very large number of astronomical objects through this telescope. So what mankind could not do, say 100 years back when the satellite was not there, today it is able to do. But this is not the only thing. What you can do today, at the time of Copernicus 350 years back, the astronomer has to look, focus his telescope to a particular object, go on making measurements round the clock, years together. After 2 years, he will get sufficient data, plot them manually, and then able to talk about the motion of that object and get information and try to make some kind of a theory and so on and so forth. But today, this situation is totally different. You are looking at thousands of objects in the sky, and with different kinds of software and different kinds of physical measurement systems and integration, it is possible to dissect the image and look at a very small point in the sky, lock your system and go on getting data from that and integrate it over a period of not only hours, years together. And then the net result is remove all the kinds of noise, remove many things nearby. Very nearby, there is a very big star with a lot of radiation, very bright because it is very near to us, and another very feeble star very much far away, billions of light years, and from that a very small signal is coming. can you remove this bright star signal and focus on that smaller object very nearby and go on integrating that data and for a large number of times. And this is all possible because of meditation. So at a time you are able to look at thousands of objects in the sky and your sensors and your telescope and with the powerful electronic behind it, and you are able to look at the feverish star. That means you are going much more deeper and deeper into space. You are going to study many more objects, and if you can study all of them simultaneously, it is possible today. So, and you have got a lot of to a better understanding of physics, which is a dream which was never possible without this competition. So this is the one kind of application to astronomy when it comes to our computation. The other day, there is another very big news today that there is a conflict between Israelis and Palestinians, and a lot of rocket launching is there, and full-fledged war is being there for, let us say, it has entered the 7th or 8th day. You must have heard the word Iron Dome. Israel has made an Iron Dome. Means physically there is not a dome above Israel anywhere. But above the capital of Israel, what they have is, in this space, they have tried to create this Iron Dome. And what is this? It is nothing but a computation physics and algorithm. What it does? The news was 1,600 rockets were fired by Palestinians in a very short time. Some 10% of them fell into the sea. So 90% they want of the rockets they had to intercept. And this Iron Dome technology, they have developed a technology in Israel. What it does, it intercepts the rocket fired in the air and before it reaches the ground, and it is exploded. So what you have another some device tracking each and every rocket fired from Palestinians and go on tracking it and hitting it in the sky before it reaches the ground. This application, and at a time handling some 1,600 rockets a feet, and what they have said, 90% to 95% of these rockets have been intercepted. They have not been able to allow to land on the Israel area. So in the war, they have been able to successfully manage the situation. Earlier, now there is a 90 to 95% situation. Earlier, few years back, when there was Iraq war, it was called Star Wars. So USA also developed such technologies and they wanted to test it. Now, unless and until you test it, you can't be sure about anything. Everything otherwise it is simulation. And it is poetry. Unless and you test it and successfully confirm that you are alive still, then it is possible to use in defense. So that was an old story, and at that time we had read the newspapers that it was a flop. But today Israel has proved that it is not a flop show. 95% they have been able to successfully manage. This also requires radars, tracking, fast tracking, changing your direction and orientation. This requires intelligent tracking because the device coming, the rocket coming is unmanned. It may be having drones, it may be having anything, and it may be controlled from a far away place. So it is a kind of a enemy kind of device which is trying to avoid your targeting and still trying to land on your territory as fast as possible. And we have to anticipate this, and we have to track it and immediately respond to it as it changes its direction, speed, and so on and so forth. Our device should also able to track it and finally hit it in the sky before it reaches the ground. So the time available to you is extremely small, And within that time, these calculations have to be made, measurements have to be made, changes in the direction and of the enemy device has to be found. And this is all impossible without any computational support, computational physics. So this is another great area of application. Now we come to one still more application, this cyclone. Our president also gave us a remark about this cyclone. Well, what is this cyclone? Today we are seeing the images of this cyclone since last 1 or 2 days, how it is intensifying and what is happening. This image of a very spiral kind of a structure, a huge structure in the Arabian Ocean, this map itself on the TV or on your computers, you are able to see because of our advances in this computational physics. What you require? These problems in atmospheric physics are extremely difficult. Today it is possible because we have a satellite which is taking a picture. That satellite image itself and a number of such images taken together, processed together and given us this kind of a map or this kind of a picture of the satellite. This is a physical picture existing at some time. Now, after 1 hour, what happens? That is the problem of predicting the cycle. Now, what happens? You, on the ground, you are held back. If you try to do the experiment, say 100 years back, or say even 50 years back, without the transistors and electronics, or even if you have those electronics and radio propagation and all that, still then, you will need so many data points. Maybe ideally you need infinite data points, but you will need too many data points to make measurements. And on the ocean, how on the earth you are going to put some equipment on the ocean and go on taking readings? And are you able to successfully get them? So this satellite today, that technology has allowed us to put cameras, put radars, put active and passive devices on the satellite and take images of the very large area. The amount of area coverage is very large from a huge distance, and therefore you are able to get this complete big picture. This picture, it is impossible to get sitting on the ground. You have to be at a higher height and you have to make these measurements. And that not only one satellite, there are n number of satellites, and that all information at every nearby point. The algorithms or the equations of physics involving temperature, humidity, pressure are very simple. But iterative calculations, you have to go on calculating again and again and try to do some approximation. That is where the algorithm comes into the picture, and that is the mathematical modeling, and then you will be able to get this picture. Now this is the picture what is existing right now. From the past history of say 2 or 4 years, 4 hours, you try to find in which direction this cyclone is likely to move. And you say that this cyclone is going to hit Gujarat coast between Porbandar and that Mahua or Bhavnagar. It is a distance of 500 kilometers, somewhere there. This is today's prediction. After 10 hours, the cyclone has already moved in certain direction, winds and every other situation has changed. So after 10 hours, you are able to say with a little more precision that it is going to hit somewhere near Dwarka within a distance of 150 kilometers. Now your prediction is reduced, means location area is reduced, error bar is reduced. After some time, just 3 hours earlier, you will be able to say that it will hit within these 15 kilometers on the land. So this kind of prediction are good, algorithms, mathematics and all that. But let me tell you, this also tells us something about, this also tells, let me tell you as an atmospheric physicist that it is not so simple. It is not so simple to predict cyclones. What we are getting are the existing pictures. If you get information about a cyclone 2 days in advance, that is 48 hours in advance, we see it has got tremendous applications. Last year and last 2 years, we have seen cyclones hitting the east coast, Andhra Pradesh and all that, and West Bengal. And we have been able to save many lives because 2 days notice helps our bureaucracy, our politicians and our scientists and all our for mass evacuation for saving lives. So 2 days is good enough. Even 3 hours will save many lives. But can you actually predict what will be the direction of this cyclone and where exactly it will hit over a period of time of 2 days? It is too early to predict. 2 days is a very large time as far as cyclones is concerned. Then you may come to one more thing. If I do some experiment 100 times, I get some measurements, I repeat that. Then definitely from the analysis of the data, you will feel that 101 my chances of prediction are better because I have analyzed the data of 100. So if you analyze the data of 10,000 cyclones, past cyclones, you have the data. You know how it has moved. You have all the mathematics, you have all the algorithm, you have all the time to do it. You do it. And then can you tell me 10,001 cyclone what will happen? Well, as a physicist, let me tell you, it is impossible. You will not be any wiser by using 10,000 cyclone data. Logically, you feel it should, but it doesn't. Why doesn't happen? Because it is a cyclone formation is a kind of a non-linear phenomenon. For a linear phenomena, you have got equation. This is exponential, or I don't know this mathematics. What kind of thing? It is something chaotic. The way the language is used is if the butterfly just moves or just flips its wings somewhere on the universe, it may change the result of your cycle. So that kind of uncertainty or probability is there. And with so many things happening throughout the globe, on the globe, something happens in Russia, some snowfall or some glacier melting takes place, and you have got changes in your climate over India after. You never know time scale. It may be you are aware of the El Nino and El Nina effects of the Pacific Ocean and Atlantic Ocean, and that decides the monsoon you are going to get after say 4 to 6 months in our country. So the globe, the atmosphere is a global phenomenon, and anything happening in China or anything happening elsewhere, even for that matter, today we know if there is a snowfall in Jammu and Kashmir, we get a cold wave after 6 to 7 days at Ahmedabad. This is our regular experience for last 7-8 years. Now, but 2 days advance information about the cyclone saves many lives. That is one positive application. Now, second, our country is largely based on agriculture, and for us, it is bread and butter. It is our food, and unless and until we have a good monsoon, we are in trouble. And always you must have seen many times old people, R.K. Lakshman's cartoons, what they say in times of India. If the weatherman is predicting there is a rain, then there is no need to carry the umbrella with you because it will never rain. So that was the state of affairs of our monsoon production long back. Now we have moved quite a lot. We have many models and models suitable to our situation, our country, because we have to make it. No one else is going to make it. So IMD has done wonderful work in last 50, 60, 70 years. But still, our predictions are about monsoon and many things are not as perfect as what happens in Europe or say USA or say Japan. I understand that there are insurance companies which tell you about, which take premium from you and tell you whether you should have a indoor or outdoor party in the evening on the particular day. That kind of accuracy of prediction is there as far as local or rainfall weather prediction, whether it is going to be bright sunlight or is it going to be rain in those countries. Not necessary because they know too much of physics or too much of mathematics or better mathematics. Not necessarily that. It is that in those regions of the earth, the phenomena in atmosphere are more or less linear. So their predictions are much better compared to our predictions. In our tropical region, the nature of the situation, the nature of the problem is it is many non-linear phenomena are there, and therefore our predictions are not going to be that perfect. So if we try to use that kind of prediction, our LIC will be bankrupt within short time. And there they have got that confidence because they have got that prediction. Now, but what is for us? What is the benefit of predicting? Why to do that? Why to do that? There are two reasons. Just because I need to do it, I will do it. I may fail, I may increase my modeling and increase my expertise, and over a period of time, maybe compared to today, after 100 years, we will be able to do it better. There is one area, analyzing and strength. There is one part of the story. Second thing is, what can be done? What is our actual application requirement today? We have 4 months of regular monsoon. We all know that. It is very regular. And then, secondly, for farming purpose, we need a 15 days information. Next fortnight, how much is going to be the rainfall in our given district of say 100 kilometers by 100 kilometers? What is the amount of rainfall? If that much information is given to our farmer, it is enough for him. In the 4 months, you will have 8 fortnights, and in these 8 fortnights, successively, 15 days in advance, if you can say, in the next 15 days, you are going to get 4 inches of rainfall in this area. In Latur area, you are going to get 12 inches of rainfall in the next 15 days. That much information is enough for our farmer. He doesn't need a day-to-day or exactly 1 hour requirement. It is a 15 days requirement. So, our state-of-the-art prediction is enough for monsoon as far as the farmer is concerned. That particular application is concerned. Now, let me come to one more application of another simple application which involves our day-to-day life. Say, banking. Today, we have a lot of confidence in our banking system. The money is involved, so your system has to be really perfect. Otherwise, your banking system will fail. So, say 10-15 years back when the cell phone was not there, you could not think of getting money around the clock. Today with the ATMs and other things, you are able to get money anywhere, any place, throughout the globe, right? And so this is the application for commerce. Then railway reservations, aeroplane reservations, and they give you the state-of-the-art situation. You cannot withdraw more money that is there. Any account anywhere is traced, and if the money is there, money is given to you, and it is deducted immediately. You get the message within no time. And banking system is that perfect. Railway reservations are also that perfect. And today, vaccination drive throughout our country. We are talking about giving vaccinations to 130 crore of people, some such gigantic number. And with the Aadhaar card, it has been possible to link all the Aadhaar cards, and it has been possible to identify each and every person and get the vaccination and arrange for the vaccination on such a mass scale. This scale of operation, so the amount of computers utilized, amount of devices utilized, and amount of use, it is simply mind-boggling memory and other requirements which are used today to make these applications very successful. And these all require necessarily computational physics. Without that, it is again impossible. Now let me come to one more wonderful application as far as our things are concerned. What is physics? Physics is essentially measurements, instruments, measurements. Without physics, without measurements, you cannot think of physics. So measurements are involved with sensors, measurements are involved with devices, measurements are involved with accuracy, measurements are involved with error bars. We all know that. So we need to make measurements. We need to make calculations. We need to assemble and organize data. And today what we have? We have sensors in our mobiles, all kinds of sensors, pressure, temperature. Mobile generates radio waves. It generates other waves also. It generates very low frequency waves also. There is a generator inbuilt in the mobile. Those are also possible. You have got today wearable watches which measure your blood pressure, heartbeats, SOP, SpO2 and temperatures, and it is able to get directly connected to the doctor, and your family doctor gets a message, and then he is able to cure you in these days of corona. So these are all intelligent devices. These are not just simple devices, they are intelligent devices. That, what do you mean by intelligent or smart? Smart devices means depending upon the measurement, depending upon your location today, or depending upon the inputs that are available, this system is able to analyze the situation. The necessary intelligence is included in the algorithm or in the program. And it takes its decision and produces the output in terms of signals. It tries to change the parameters of the system. It tries to change the temperature, pressure, etc. by using heaters or whatever required, and tries to keep the thing within a reasonable limit. So it is taking decisions for you also. It is artificial intelligence, you could say. So all these things are possible and not without intelligent device, and definitely this all requires computation. Another area of computation physics. And then what do we require? We should not only know what is happening today, we should be able to think in future. That is research. Research is generating new science, generating new knowledge. And for that, first referencing means you should be aware of what is the state of affairs today. And then you will get some new ideas and innovations, and you will develop something for the future. So if you can look into the future, then it is research. Otherwise, it is not research. It is just measurement. That is the engineering part. And research part or the innovation part requires knowing what is today. And what you need to know is the latest state-of-the-art things. Today, the world has become, globe has become small, and not only small, the world today is innovation. The world today is intelligent. And the world today is, what you can say, interdisciplinary. You cannot break or have complete walls between physics, chemistry, math, biology, or our hypnotism, or say medical sciences and DNA, RNA building, pharmacy. You cannot have complete walls. Walls are all merged. To do research or to do any applications today, you need experts in every area, but with awareness in other areas also. And they come together and gel together. Everyone does his own job, and you are able to do some targeted research or come with an application or come with some output which is able to develop, which is able to use in day-to-day life. So if you want to do something in real life, you need this kind of coordination also, and you need to know the state of the art. So for the people who want to do physics, who want to do mathematics, this workshop is extremely important. But then again, you should, for others also who don't want to do any work in this area of computational physics, they should also be at least aware of what are the capabilities of a computational physics, what it cannot do and what it can do. If you are able to have that much awareness, that awareness is also extremely important if you want to success in life today. So that awareness will be given to you training through this kind of workshop. Now, I will talk to you about two simple applications. This, I wanted to show you a video, but with this kind of situation of network, it is not possible. But you type on the Google and you will get everywhere. In 2006, National Instruments launched a product. National Instruments is a multinational company which produces equipment for measurements and control in industry. The video of say few minutes, what it was, I have seen that video when they were being launched by the company. What it shows that ball bearings which are manufactured by a company are rolling down a conveyor belt and they fall from a height at zero velocity under the gravity to a place say 10 feet down. And by the time a ball falls from that top place to the ground under the force of gravity, in 1 second it will move 5 meters. So 10 feet will not take even 1 second, it will take less than half a second. So within a half second the ball is falling down, and this ball made up of steel, you take say that 100 pictures from different angles by the time it falls to the ground. And these 100 pictures, you try to analyze them. And you try to analyze them and you wanted to sort out these balls, measure their dimensions very accurately, diameters, and then decide which is a good ball, which is a bad ball, and which is a reasonable ball, or 3 or 4 sorting arrangements you have to make. So by the time it falls on the bottom, there is a kind of a platform which is controlled by springs, and the platform rotates, and the ball is sorted out and depending upon the parameters which you have been measured. So it is a measurement system. It takes 100 or 1000 pictures, and those pictures are analyzed and the dimensions are accurately measured, and finally it is decided, the intelligent device takes a decision that this ball is bad or this ball is good or this ball has got within the tolerance limits and it is the best, and accordingly this platform rotates and you reflect that ball into that particular bin. So this is an industrial application which requires very fast cameras, very fast image processing, very fast calculations, getting to a conclusion and making the necessary signal to the platform to rotate it and put the ball where it should be put. So it is a measurement, analysis, image processing, computational calculation, and then providing a signal and controlling the system of the platform to put it at a proper place. So this is one of the applications in industry, and let me tell you, this program was made within 6 weeks. That is the information in some US university. So students have made this program in 2006. In 6 weeks, of course, they have used different kinds of software. LabVIEW was one of the softwares used. So LabVIEW is a software, and along with the system, along with some hardware, it is sold by this National Instruments company. This 2006. So today also, what we were talking, we were given to know that Python and different languages are there. Similarly, LabVIEW and different kinds of applications, let me say, application software is there. Nowadays, ये जमाना assembly technology का है. The carpenter that comes today to our house is not going with a wood and cutting it and doing all that. No. He gets ready-made assembled material, does a little minimal work and fits your machine, fits your furniture. Similarly, in the wall in your house, you want to put windows. So window panes, aluminum channels are available. You put them in place. You put another channels and put the glass, and the window is ready. So the time is of assembly technology. The carpenter does not need to know how to labor and do all these things and get the exact shape. That is left to the art workers who want to make some murti or something. But otherwise, many things are assembled. So today also, you should be able to use this assembly technology and use different software. You don't make all the software yourself. You utilize the software. You should be aware of the capabilities and what it can do and what the software cannot do and what kind of minor changes are required to adapt that software to your particular use. So if you have got that awareness, that kind of a knowledge, then you can do physics. So that kind of thing is also required when you come to do some interdisciplinary kind of work. Now I have only another 4 or 5 minutes. I think I have been talking all the time. Now I will do a little more talking towards the closing of this my talk. Where is exactly the physics which or mathematics which comes to my mind, or where exactly in physics area where you require computational physics is you require to study the atoms and molecules, their interaction, their bonding between them, to know to do some real physics. And we need not only to know what is existing in nature, we need to make some exotic material. With this nanotechnology and nanofilms, our properties of materials have changed drastically, and you are able to have some material which is not existing in nature, but you can make it synthetically and use it for different kinds of applications. So similarly, in order to study that kind of a physics, we heard the word of Monte-Carlo method. We heard about some heuristic and deterministic approaches by our president. And then another very famous mathematics that is used is Runge-Kutta fourth order method. So this is also another approximation kind of a method. But you have got to study the atoms and molecules in physics or condensed matter physics, they call it now. Earlier they called it properties of matter. To study that, we have approximation method, and it solves ordinary differential equations. The fourth order thing is if y is a function of x, okay, some differential equation is there, and then you add x0, what is the y0 value, the initial condition you know, and you know the property of that particular material, let us say carbon. So if you, that in literature, all those many properties, surface tension, viscosity, and melting point, and many other parameters are well about that particular material. Now, if you are combining it with some other element and trying to make one molecule, what will be the structure of the molecule, and so on and so forth. The basic underlying physics principle is the material at a given temperature, pressure, and other parameters, conditions, will be acquiring a state which is in the lowest energy state. So this is the axiom, or this is the boundary condition on which everything is based. And you go on putting those things and try to make some calculation, then your first order, fourth order means you have k1 function of x and y, then k2 function of x plus half step function of y to the square, and then k3 and k4. So with these four, your approximation improves, and you are able to come to with out. So this Runge-Kutta method is much utilized. You will come to know about these details and the nitty-gritty when the domain lectures you will get from the experts. So this is the area in physics which you require. Another area in physics and also in say communications, which is very important for us, is sending command signals to satellites or this kind of fiber optic or optical communication. I will just touch, I have no time, so just few sentences and that's the end. If you want to send a digital signal, how do you send it? You send it in terms of 0 and 1. So 0s and 1s constitute a positive step, sudden step going up and a sudden step going down. If you combine these two steps, you get a square. Now this square wave, if you take a mathematical approach, this square function, if you want to pass it to any system, you will require infinite bandwidth. You will require a series of infinite sine waves, which will give you, depending upon the time of the square wave. You need infinite terms to exactly pass a square wave from one point to another. Physically, there is nothing like an infinite bandwidth, and there is no channel which will pass infinite bandwidth. So what you have to do? You have to approximate. Means you have to filter. So digital filters will involve truncating the square wave. So this square wave, it is like a magic. In you put a square wave and out you get a sine wave. So that is the way for reducing the bandwidth. So with the minimum bandwidth you will get a sine wave. But if you sample that sine wave exactly at the proper place, proper instant of time, you can regenerate the square. Means the beauty of digital electronics is you can regenerate the signal you have sent at the receiver at any place, passing through any medium. It is in principle and also in practice possible to regenerate this square wave without any noise. So noiseless, flawless square wave you are able to generate. That is the beauty of this system. And physically you are able to do it using optical fibers. Physical structures like microstrip lines, different kinds of antennas, it is possible to do this. And you can also simulate inductors, you can simulate resistors, you can simulate capacitors using all kinds of logic circuits you have today, FPGA and other things. So this is possible today because of computational physics, because of filtering DSP, all these areas require computational physics without that. So I once again take this opportunity, thank the organizers and all the participants to have patient hearing. Thank you.
Thank you, sir, for this giving complete understanding of how and where all computational physics can be used. Now I call upon Dr. K.G. Bhore to propose vote of thanks. Bhore sir, you are mute.
Okay, thank you. Good morning, all of you. We are almost at the end of this session, inaugural session. Today's speaker, Professor P.D. Lele, who gave a talk on as an enrichment lecture on areas in physics and application requiring tools of computational physics. Of course, he touched so many areas, mentioned so many areas, including astronomy, weather bureau, communication, banks, reservation system, vaccination drive apps, and then the nanomaterial synthesis, as well as the digital communication, and so on. So many areas are there where computational physics is playing very, very important role. And it's a very interesting talk it was. Friends, I on behalf of the Sub-Regional Council Mumbai of IAPT, I sincerely thanks today's speaker and guest P.D. Lele, Professor P.D. Lele. I also thanks our IAPT President, Professor Vijay Singh, who is always guiding factor for all of us, and he always speaks about good words about the good things which this sub-regional council carries out. Thank you, sir. Friends, it is the participants because of for whom this type of programs we are organizing, and thanks also goes to all of you. At the same time, at the inauguration of this particular session, our President of Sub-Regional Council, Dr. Atul Modi, spoke about computational physics and the areas in which this Sub-Regional Council is working. I sincerely thank our President of Sub-Regional Council, Dr. Atul Modi, the coordinator of this particular workshop, and the main person who is working for this particular workshop, Professor Shekhar and Professor Mahesh Shetty. Sincerely thanks to both of you, and also the expert speakers who have kindly consented to help us and train the participants in a very, very effective and efficient manner. I also thank those two tutors also who will be getting introduced to you during the actual sessions. Friends, all the members of the executive committee of this particular sub-regional council also uh, uh, are to be thanked. Professor Mahesh, Rekha, Ghorpade madam, Shamla madam, and other invitees. Friends, it is a virtual meet, and we are going to be you are going to be trained to virtual Google Classroom. It will be full of assignment, full of interaction, full of WhatsApp chats, and hence it will be a wonderful journey for all of us. Expect all of you to be very, very vocal and be ready to grasp the ideas, to carry out your own assignments, learn maximum in minimum time as far as possible. All the best. Thank you all. Over to Mahesh.